Hello everyone, my name is Plywood, and this is going to be the commentary track for my Metal Gear Ghost Babel run on very hard difficulty, Big Boss Rank. Now if you don't know about this game, don't worry about it, it's a more obscure game in the series. It is the last 2D Metal Gear game ever made. It was released for Game Boy Color in the year 2000. In Europe and North America, it was released as Metal Gear Solid, mostly as a marketing ploy. But in Japan, it's called Metal Gear Ghost Babel, so that's what I'll be calling it since I'm playing the Japanese version. The reason I'm playing the Japanese version is real-time-wise, the script is a lot faster because of the Japanese language, which is nice. You save a few minutes doing that. But when we play this game, we compare the times based on the in-game timer. So at the end of every stage, you get results depending on how well you played. And so all that time adds up to your final result. And that's why there's a spreadsheet on the right side of the gameplay. This starting stage is pretty straightforward. There's not too much to talk about. The only weird thing is the screen coming up. I'm actually going to delay my movement a little bit. And the reason I do this is you can actually go too fast here and get caught by this guard on the right side of the bridge. Now, if you're wondering how I'm playing this, I'm playing on the GameCube with the Game Boy Player attachment, which is essentially a Game Boy Advance that hooks up to the bottom of your GameCube. You can play Game Boy games, Game Boy Color games, and Game Boy Advance games. And the software I'm using is not the original Game Boy Player software. I'm using something called Game Boy Interface. That's why you see that nifty input display at the top of the screen. And there's some perks to playing on Game Boy Interface. It plays in 240p versus 480i, so the game just looks clearer and cleaner. It actually is a bit more responsive and reflective of the original Game Boy's refresh rate. So it's a bit more accurate, actually, compared to the original software bundled with the Game Boy Player hardware. So that's how I play this game. Coming into Stage 2, we're entering the Fortress Gallowade, and you're going to be noticing very soon that the punches in this game don't make a whole lot of sense. We're going to be punching guards around corners. It's just something I call corner punching. And the funny thing is, when you punch from a corner, your range for your punch gets extended more than you think. But it works the same way for the guards, so they can corner punch you as well. And as you can see, we're running on diagonals, which is a new feature compared to the older 2D Metal Gear games. And we buffer just long enough to get past that camera. So let's talk about Big Boss Rank. If you're unfamiliar with Metal Gear speedrunning, Big Boss Rank is the highest rank achievable on the highest difficulty, typically. So the game rates your performance throughout the game and tracks various statistics. In this game, it's a little bit different from the standard statistics tracked in the series. So unlike other games, this game does not track continues, so if you die, it does not necessarily mean you're going to lose Big Boss Rank. But there are some exceptions. We can kill no more than 24 people, 24 guards. I'm not going to kill anyone during this run. And you can eat no more than one ration. We will definitely be eating a ration in this run. And we cannot be spotted more than 5 times. Our time limit is 2 hours, in-game time-wise. That's a little bit weird because alerts are kind of strange in this game. When you throw a grenade or cause an explosion, it's not an alert until a guard or a camera spots you, and we'll be exploiting that later on. And even though continues don't count against us, if we get continues in certain spots, it will cause us to go and get another alert, and that could possibly ruin our rank. So that's the basics of the Big Boss Rank. It seems simple, but The fact that we can only take 5 alerts and we can only eat 1 ration really limits us in terms of what we can do and where we should take those alerts. If you watch the any % run of this game on normal difficulty, you'll see that the top runners will take a lot of alerts because usually taking an alert is faster than not taking an alert. But on Big Boss rank for very hard, we need to be very selective about where we take our alerts. So for instance, in Stage 2, which we just saw, we're not going to take any alerts there because it's not worth it. However, on Stage 3, we will take 1 alert at the end. The other big thing to note about very hard is there's more guards and more cameras, and we take a lot more damage. So at base health, which is what health we're at right now, 3 hits and we're dead, which makes the first boss of the game very challenging. So this is the sewers, and coming up here is a weird screen with rats on it. The way guards respond to noises is kind of strange. Sometimes they'll hear it, sometimes they don't. They'll hear it early, they'll hear it late. So there is a faster line on this screen, but I don't go for it because it's really inconsistent and it's not very marathon safe. Saves like 40 frames, but if you get caught there, it's just a reset, so I don't bother with that. Now we're coming up on the first major skip of the game, we call water skip. So there's going to be this big water wave that'll come through the sewers after a period of time, and we're going to skip the second water wave. First water wave, we're just going to time our movement properly, but for the second one, we're going to do a buffer. I use 3 punches and then I do a certain line. And that will time Snake so that he'll cross the screen when the next wave is crossing the screen. There's about a 12 frame window for this if I remember correctly. And then we're going to go onto this ladder and wait for the next wave to go past. And this will perfectly time us, so we skip past this wave that just passed us. And we're going to take a little route detour compared to the normal run, the any % run. We're going to climb this ladder and pick up a cardboard box. Now you don't necessarily need to pick this up, but it's very beneficial, as it's going to prevent us from taking some unnecessary damage coming up. And it'll allow us to do certain techniques and strategies in the watchtower, which is the next sequence of the game. So that's the sewer section. Coming up, we need to go find our contact. Her name is Chris Jenner. She has a red cap and long hair, and casually you're probably just going to get lost, but I know where I'm going, thankfully. So we're going to go against the wall here, crawl along it, sidle along, and be in just the right position where that guard won't spot us. And then right here, we're going to run just along this box and just barely get past the camera before it spots us. And we see the magic of corner punching right there. And I do a little 1-punch buffer so I can get past that guard. You're going to see me do a lot of buffering with punches. It's just a good way to measure out time. You spend about 20 frames if you do a punch, so it allows us to time our movement precisely. And when that guard passes the corner shadow, I start moving there. This gas room is quite challenging, movement-wise, because it's a lot of tight turns. Then right here is a more precise strategy. You could knock out this guard going down, but instead I'm going to precisely move so that I can just be out of his vision before he starts moving up. Knock to distract this guard, and he'll run back. And then I can knock him out more quickly. And then knock this guard out. 3 punches will knock them out. And then knock out this guard. Knocking out guards is just more worth it compared to killing them. Killing them is really slow. They take more bullets on very hard. It's just a big waste of time to kill them, so we don't do that. My only thought of why they made the kill requirement 24 is because I believe that's the kill requirement in Metal Gear Solid 1. And right here I use a little trick. I open up the menu when the elevator starts moving or lands. And the reason I do that is when you open up the menu, the in-game timer is not ticking, but the animation for the elevator will still play. And doing that throughout the run will save a fair amount of time, like a minute. And here we're going to use the box to go as far forward as possible and avoid getting spotted by the red cap. These are the kinds of strategies that are unlocked if you pick up the box. In a multi-segment task situation, it's likely not worth it to pick up the box, but for single segment, it's really, really a necessity. And we'll time our movement to get just past that guard. Typically, it's not worth it to knock out guards if we don't have to. And then pull out the fogger so we can see the lasers, but I'm not actually going to do the puzzle here. I'm just going to run through, avoid getting spotted by that guard, and completely skip the puzzle. So that's the first intentional alert we take. That saves about a minute, actually. Upwards of a minute not doing that puzzle. You could do it intentionally, but it's just not really worth it. The only trouble is that guard I ran past while I was on alert, he can actually spot you, and if he does, that counts as 2 alerts. One for the laser, one for the guard. And that's just a piece of RNG that you have to deal with. There is an alternative strat that avoids that, but it's a little bit slower, where you still take only 1 alert, but it's a little bit slower getting there. So I just go for it and hope I don't get 2 alerts. There are 4 alerts routed in to this run. The 5th one is kind of a freebie. I mean, there's a spot where we want to use that alert, but it's not a necessity. But the other 4 alerts are complete necessities. We have to take them where we take them, as far as going really fast. Technically, you can get Big Boss Rank with 0 alerts, but it just adds a lot of time to the run, so I don't do that. So we meet up with Chris, and she's going to lead us out of the watchtower, and she's going to mosey on over. Not too much to do here. In a marathon, this is every stage. You know, when you complete a stage, there's a cutscene, so it's a really good place for donations and that kind of thing. I don't mind, though, waiting a little bit, because this is one of the hardest stages in the game once we get outside of the watchtower. So once again, we're going to use the cardboard box to our advantage. Knock out that guard, run along to this wall, quit the box, and then the camera will go by and we'll be able to exit the room. And a weird thing is, when you see this cutscene, it actually unequips the box, so I don't have to do the menuing, which is nice. Again, skipping past that puzzle since it's a huge waste of time. And this is the room why you really want the cardboard box in a single segment run, because otherwise you are guaranteed to take damage. But with the box, we're not going to take damage. And like I said, 3 hits and we're dead, and the first boss of the game is coming up, and he is a doozy. Probably the hardest boss of all the 2D Metal Gear games. It's that bad. This spiral is reminiscent of a spiral in Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. This game makes a lot of references to Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, but it's actually an alternative sequel to the original Metal Gear on MSX. It's kind of a what-if Gaiden story, if you will. And we go past the red cap once again. and then we'll head down to the first floor. Perfect punch right there. You want to try to time your punches and your menus so that you menu just as Snake punches the button, so you can get as much time save as possible from that little in-game time abuse. Now here's a pretty challenging room, but it's a pretty cool strategy, if I do say so myself. We're gonna wait for this guard, look back and forth, and then I'm gonna be in just as far forward as I can. And once the camera is, part of the model of the camera is blocked by the box, I actually can go by, quit the box, and then go past that guard once the peripheral vision is preferable. Now thankfully this room, the lasers are static and consistent, so as long as you know where to go, it's fine. Taking the alert here is not worth it. Whereas that big room I ran through on alert, the lasers are not consistent and it's a pretty annoying path to take. So now we're outside of the watchtower, and this is where the stage really begins. It has some of the most challenging lines and movement in the entire game. Chris is going to go to the power plant, and we're going to go forward to the barracks to go rescue Dr. Jimmy Harks, who's working on the Metal Gear project. I'm going to knock out this guard. It's the safe strat, but the other strat's a little bit precise, and it doesn't save too much time. And here's the infamous switch puzzle. So depending on what button that guard presses, that determines the puzzle solution that we're going to take for this puzzle. He can press any 4 of the buttons, and that's what I call the solution button. It removes the doors in the 3rd and 4th position, so that's our goal, is to get 2 doors in the 3rd and 4th position. And this is how we do it. Shift them over, press that solution button, and off we go. The only randomness is what pattern you get, but it's not like completely random, thankfully. You just have to know the solutions. So now coming into this kennel area, we have to avoid aggroing those birds because they will cause alerts. And these dogs are vicious. We gotta be very careful. I'm gonna knock this dog out, run past him, knock this guard out. He's gonna hear his friend knock over. I'm gonna run by, then squeak by this guy's back. And we're gonna go over to this right side. In a marathon, I would go into this first truck to pick up an extra ration, but I'm going for big boss rank, so I'm not doing that. And we're gonna pick up these grenades. In a marathon run, you really don't want to play around with trying to get big boss rank. It's just a good idea to pick up the ration in case you die, just so the run doesn't get really slow. And a very precise line there to get past that dog. Buffered properly, angled properly, we don't get spotted. If a dog catches us, it's not actually an alert, but they are very dangerous. You don't want to deal with these dogs. They will kill you very quickly. And a single punch buffer. This guard dog going south doesn't bother us. And this bird's room is rough. We gotta buffer our movement just well enough, take a precise angle to get through the birds. It's ridiculous. And we hold up left here, get spotted by the dogs. We can actually manipulate their movement and they won't attack us. Very nice. So, we pick up these grenades. That one ration we picked up is the only ration we're going to use in this entire run. And here's Slasher Hawk. The infamous Slasher Hawk. He's an aborigine from Australia who throws 2 different kinds of boomerangs. A green boomerang that zigzags, and then a red boomerang that goes linearly. in whatever direction he throws it. And then his hawk will attack us in the second phase of the fight. Now for this fight, he threw a lot of red boomerangs at the start. It's not set how he throws or what he throws. So I'm just narrowly dodging these boomerangs and trying to time my grenade throws based on the iframes. Again, 3 hits and we're dead here, so you gotta be very careful. Now this hawk is deadly. It moves faster on very hard compared to normal, and it's pretty unpredictable. My general strat here is to run around in circles, kind of just keep on looping, but even doing so, you might get hit by the hawk. But I do a pretty good job in this fight of avoiding the damage, so much so that I get a perfect no-hit fight. 441 is a gold for stage 4. It was a very clean stage 4 for me. I can't emphasize enough how tough that fight is due to the fact that the hawk flight pattern is not consistent. What boomerangs Slasher Hawk throws is not consistent. He can even throw 2 boomerangs at once. And if you're not prepared for all the possibilities, and you don't have the experience, it's going to be a very difficult fight on very hard due to that. I only missed 1 grenade, which is nice. We want to have as many grenades going into the end game as possible. The more grenades we have, the better our chances are in defeating Metal Gear. So this is stage 5. This is one of the longer stages in the game. Now, on normal, you would actually go to the left side to pick up the yellow box, but we already have it, so we're just going to immediately go on the elevator. And I'm going to do a little damage boost here because later on, we're going to use intentional deaths to skip picking up the thermal goggles. You waste a grenade doing that, but it saves time ultimately since you don't have to throw 2 grenades to kill yourself later. I was feeling a bit risky this run, so I said, oh, what the heck. I'm going to throw that grenade, hurt myself. And this is the conveyor belt maze. Casually, this is kind of a nightmare because once you get the red box, you can get lost pretty easily. And then when you get the blue box, oh, forget about it, you're going to get lost. It can be a bit frustrating casually, but I know where I'm going, and really the first trip, there's nowhere else to go but to ride the conveyor belts. Again, very good place for donations in a marathon style. Now I'm holding up left here. This is actually going to reduce my turn when I'm picking up this red box, which is nice. Very subtle frame saver there. And this is a really cool line. We're going to just get past that guard and move as quickly as possible. Make this guard hear us. He's going to investigate the noise. And then we're going to get out before the camera can spot us. And that is the 1 cycle first drop. I love that line. It's such a cool line. One thing you got to be very careful about when speedrunning this game is that when you make a noise, so a guard falls over, you run on a noisy tile, or you knock on a wall or whatever, when a guard hears a noise and they go to investigate, they don't always come as quickly as you want them to. Sometimes they will stand still and look side to side before investigating the noise. Now sometimes this can be a good thing, but typically it's a bad thing. And you have to plan around that. Otherwise, it's very easy to accidentally take an alert where you don't want to. And typically, I want to remove as much RNG and randomness from this run as possible because there's several things that are not in my control, but how I deal with guards is typically in my control. And so at this junction, we're going to equip the red box, go into this little building, and this will allow us to get card 3. And with card 3, we can open up another door to get the blue box. Time our movement just as this guard's passing. And this is a really tight line here. 2 punches, and this will allow us to get by without getting spotted by the camera or the guard. Not really a hard line, but still very precise, tight timing. As you can see, they were a big fan of showing off the color in Game Boy Color with this multi-color box puzzle. The closest comparison that this puzzle has for the 2D Metal Gears is in Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. There's the swamp puzzle, which is very trial and error, and so is this one. Like, if you go that left path, it just loops in back into that starting room. It's a complete waste of time. But as long as you know where you're going, it's not too bad. This one's a bit tricky, though. We need to equip the red box, like, right now. And then alternate between yellow and red. Again, excellent time for donations in a marathon run. So coming up into this room, we're going to open up the door, and then stand on a precise line, equip the box again, wait for the guard to pass by the tile line, which will allow us to get past them, or pick up these stun grenades. Those are really important. We're going to need all 3 of those stun grenades in that pack. And pick up the blue box here. And then here's a cool little strat. We're going to hide in the box and do a very nice corner punch once this guard gets into position. Knock him out. Now on normal, there's actually more grenades, more stun grenades in this level, but sadly, we don't get that luxury on very hard. That's one of the big challenges of this run, is the lack of resources. The game really is stingy. Now for that guard right there who heard us on the noisy tile, we could do a strat similar to what we did on the first drop, where we stand in place and run past him once he turns. And you can do that without the box. The problem is, if he looks side to side at the wrong time and I don't anticipate it, I could get an alert. So I take the 1 second time loss and knock him out. It's just safer. Especially at this health, because if I take an alert, I'm just gonna die immediately. There is a perk to dying, though. If you're on alert, it actually removes the alert as long as you don't go into a new room. So now that we have the blue box, we have everything we need to go rescue the good Dr. Jimmy Harks. Put the blue box here as a shortcut to go onto this conveyor belt. So coming up is the thermal goggles skip. So you're intended to take another trip on these conveyor belts to pick up the thermal goggles and go through this dark room where there's lasers that'll trap you in and kill you, but we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to manipulate the lasers by killing ourselves, exiting and entering the room, and then the lasers will be predictable. And I will buffer my movement in such a way that I'll be able to avoid picking up the thermal goggles. Unfortunately, there was kind of a weird mistake here where I threw it in the wrong spot and it didn't kill me. So we exit the room, enter the room, and then I'm going to do 8 punches here. And I pace my punches out in a certain way that's consistent for me. Another 2, and then we skip on the first trip. And this is the first use of chaff in the game. Waiting out these cameras takes a lot of time, so it's just better to throw the chaff there. Knock out this guard. This guy won't notice us since he's staring at those pretty purple boxes. And again, same trick, going as far as possible forward. Equipping the box. knocking this guard out, and moving on forward. And we came all this way so we can pick up this C4. That way we can bust Jimmy out of jail. Once again, equipping the box, timing our movement at the precise time so the guard doesn't see us and we don't have to knock him out. Little one-punch buffer there so this guard doesn't see us out of his peripheral. And another chaff throw here so we don't have to deal with the cameras yet again. Now you may be wondering, well, aren't you causing alerts by throwing these grenades and explosives? But an explosion on its own does not actually cause an alert. It's only when a camera or a guard spots you. So an explosion on its own isn't an alert, which you'll see at the end stats that is the case. So 7-punch buffer, 8-punch buffer, and we're out, and we don't need to pick up the thermal goggles, which saves a few minutes. And we're going to see the thermal goggles here on this drop. It's going to be in the top right corner, and I'm not even going to pick them up. I don't need them. You know why? Because Jimmy's about to give them to us. Oddly enough, he has his own pair of thermal goggles, and he's going to hand it to us at the end of this upcoming cutscene. He's just like, whoa, who are you? I've never even met you before. You just blew up a wall, pulled a reverse Kool-Aid Man on the Kool-Aid Man. It's pretty weird. It's actually very important that we do not meet Jimmy before this point, because otherwise the checkpoint would be at Jimmy's jail cell, and that will pretty much make it impossible for us to exit and do the thermal skip properly. I think it's really cool that the developers in this game actually planned around the idea that you could do a sequence break here, because Jimmy's just going to hand us the thermal goggles here. Which I really appreciate when developers actually put thought into saying, well, I guess someone could actually do this without the thermal goggles. This game is very forward-thinking in terms of speedrunning, because not only does it track your individual time stage to stage, but there's a bunch of individual level runs that recognizes your personal best. There's 90 VR missions. There's a bunch of special variations on the standard 13 stages that all track your best time. And some of those special missions are actually just like, hey, complete this stage in under X seconds. So, very forward-thinking game for 2000. Since the power went out, we need these thermal goggles, so it's very nice that Jimmy smuggled them into his cell. And here's stage 6. So, the power's out, and we need a way out of the barracks now that we've helped Jimmy out. That sleeping guard's not going to notice us. And we're going to stop at a certain tile line, and once the guard moves a certain distance, I'm going to move. Once again, knocking out this guard. It's just safer that way. Now, oddly enough, these doors have, like, I don't know, a battery backup, so we're still going to have to open them up. I tend to avoid running around in the dark just because, you know, you don't want to miss a door or something, but I know how to do this movement here. But once I open the door, I'm going to equip the thermos and the R5, the Galil assault rifle, which we're going to need. So heading up over here, now that we have the assault rifle, we'll be able to take on the second boss of the game, Marionette Owl. Had a bit of a guard kerfuffle here, but that's okay. Knock out this guard. Again, there's these like gas rooms, but it's not really a big deal. We can always get out before even losing HP. So picking up a gas mask is virtually worthless. Speedrun-wise. The third conveyor belt, we crawl up left here, stand up, and pretty cool little strat here. Corner punch this guy, And if we time that right and go quickly, we can take the lower path here. If we miss knocking out that guard, we'll have to take the upper path and lose a little bit of time. Jimmy and Chris have a comedic moment in Japanese. Here's what I mean. Lower path, knock this guard out. It's a little bit faster than taking the upper path. So we're just making our way to Marionette Owl, the second boss of the game. And Marionette Owl is still pretty tricky. He hides himself among two of his dolls, and you have to know which of the dolls is Marionette Owl. And the challenging thing for very hard is, if you shoot the wrong doll, not only does it explode into bullets, it actually heals Marionette Owl for a hit point of damage, which is not fun. Equip the card at just the right time and avoid having to knock out that guard as long as you just barely get past him on the left side. So, the start of this fight is consistent, 100%. As far as what pattern I'm going to do here and how I'm going to shoot the assault rifle. I'm going to hold up left, then shoot left, and then shoot on the right side. Left, right, and now Marionette Owl can do a bunch of different patterns. This is a very fast pattern. And I accidentally shot one of the dolls, sadly, so I lost a hit point there. Things got a little bit spooky, but it's okay. The fight can go pretty quickly, potentially, but if you accidentally shoot a doll, you're going to lose a fair bit of time because now you're going to have to shoot Marionette Owl once more to make up for the fact that you shoot the wrong doll. But the important part is not dying. My PB, personal best, which you see, is a 44.22. That's a big boss run, and on that big boss run, I died on Marionette Owl, so not dying. It's a very good thing. Very good, since we'll save a lot of time that way. Even if I don't have quite as good of a fight as I wanted to, we still got through it. So here's one of the shortest stages in the game, Stage 7. It's the midpoint of the run. The game wants to trick you into thinking you need to solve this puzzle. You don't. You can just run through the doors. If you try to solve the puzzle, eventually a guard will come by and just walk through the doors. And it's a pretty funny practical joke. So this is a minefield. There's certain places in the minefield where there are mines on this route that I'm taking. So you just crawl and stand up at the right time. There's supposed to be a click when you pick up the mine, but the problem is that codec call masks that noise since the Game Boy Color is only so powerful. So I just have to know that I've picked up the mine. Havoc helicopter. That's not a Hind, it's a Havoc. Oh my. And a cool little scene of Metal Gear firing a nuclear missile. Boom. The art in this game was expertly crafted by one of the best pixel artists from Konami at the time. A lot of people say, wow, this game looks really good for a Game Boy Color game. And yeah, they put a lot of effort and energy into the fluidity of the animations, the pixel art. It's really a sight to see. The pixel art is so good that when they re-released Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, they actually took the pixel art portraits for Colonel Campbell and Solid Snake from this game and put them into that game, which is pretty interesting. So, the artillery strikes start happening. We need to run back down the hill. It's too risky going up the hill. Now, these artillery strikes are random. They could actually hit us, potentially. It usually doesn't happen, but it can happen. But the artillery didn't hit us this run. We got a 0.44. 43 is ideal, and a 42 is possible if you have, like, literally perfect movement. So we're coming into stage 8, which is by far the hardest stage in the entire run. The reason why it's the hardest stage in the run is we're going to be doing a precise glitch. And this glitch is what we call the Nikita Skip, originally discovered by LCC, then improved by Casino Coin and myself, at least as far as the setup is concerned. This is going to allow us to skip picking up the Nikita missile launcher and skip going to the second floor of the power plant, which saves several minutes. The problem is on very hard, we only have so much health to work with, and this is where we're going to use our ration. Now in a marathon style run, you would have multiple rations here just in case, because if you get stuck on the other side without a ration because you died and failed the trick, you could get into an unwinnable scenario. And that is why you definitely want to have extra rations. And there's several extra rations we can pick up by this point just to be safe, because you really don't want to get into that situation. It's pretty rough. The other weird thing about this stage, and we're going to be in this area for stage 9, is that there are these pillars that I'll be looking at and subtly as we go through this stage. These pillars have exposed points on them, and on stage 9 we're going to be planting C4 at these exposed points. And there will be 4 spots to plant the C4, 4 for C4. And the spots are completely random. There's over 20 spots. Some of them are really good, some of them are really bad. So part of the routing is checking those spots as we move through. Here's the very laggy basement, because they added way too many guards on very hard, so this is lagging. There's an exposed pillar spot. We're going to knock this guard out, and then crawl through this vent. Unfortunately, crawling through vents it's just slow. There's not really much we can do to speed this up besides crawling diagonally. Ideally, this is the only vent you crawl through. However, if you get really bad luck with the pillar spots, you might have to crawl through the vent again. Not this one, but a later one. Now we're going to be doing a pretty weird thing. We're going to cause an alert with an explosion, but again, not get spotted by anyone so we don't get caught. Do a little buffer here to avoid getting spotted by this guard, and then run through the door. It's very important that on card doors, you don't just hold the direction, because you'll actually go against a fake wall there, and that loses you time and could get you caught. So I always delay a moment before I go through a door. So we blow this up, and that'll allow us to go across this puddle. It won't be electrified as the other puddles are. And then exploit the corner punch, knock out this guard. Again, even though we're on alert phase, no one has spotted us yet, so it doesn't count as an alert. Punch this guy's feet, go through the door, and just go back and forth to wait out the alert. Check another pillar spot, it's not there. And here's the Nikita Skip. So, we're going to go into a pixel perfect position, and then I'm going to blow myself up. This will allow for the most consistent start, because what we're going to be doing is abusing iframes from a guard punching us to go across the only electrified part of the floor. There is a lot of things that can go wrong with this skip. You're relying on guard behavior to be good. Sometimes the guards will moonwalk when you're trying to knock them out, and then they'll shoot you. Sometimes this first guard won't punch us immediately, and that's a big no-no, because likely what's going to happen is we're going to take too much damage. If you're only using one ration and you're going for Big Boss, you only have one extra hit to work with. So the most you'll go into the third boss fight of the game is with 2 hits of life. So I only have 1 hit of leeway. We're going to get spotted by this guard here because we don't want to initiate evasion. If we do, that'll cause an additional alert, which is not good. And a developer-intended shortcut, blow up this wall. Go through. I'm going to camera pan here to influence this guard's behavior. And I just want him to shoot me, not try to smack me across the way. Shoot me, dude. Thank you. Use the iframes again, stun these guards, and now we're at literally one hit point, and it just barely works. And that's just how it is on very hard. This trick is a lot easier on normal since you have more health. You know, things don't do as much damage to you, and you can use more rations, but on Big Boss, that is all you get. So that's why in a marathon run, you pick up additional rations. If it happens, it happens. So it goes, because you don't want to get stuck in an unwinnable situation, not being able to get past the floor. So here's Pyro Bison. Very, very good setup here. We're going to set up 2 mines. He's going to run down, and then there's an exposed pillar spot. So the way this works is after he's done with his iframes, I'm going to shoot the Galil, and we want to shoot in the middle of his little pack on the back. And as long as you time out the shots properly, you can just get him stuck in this animation loop. And that was a very good Pyro Bison. It took me a long time, hours, to figure out how to make this fight predictable and consistent on very hard, because on normal it's 100% consistent, but sadly on very hard he doesn't always move the same way. And so I settled for a 2-mine setup on the right side, and he always agrees to run in and take damage. The only issue with that fight is he can actually decide to turn and burn you if he wants. So you're just kind of relying on the good faith of Pyro Bison and your ability to shoot at the right time, which can be pretty challenging. So here's stage 9. This is the most random stage in the game. The pace here can vary wildly. This stage could take 5 minutes, it could take 2 minutes. So a lot of time can be gained or lost here. Even though I'm 151 seconds ahead, the luck I got in my PB was actually quite good. A low 2-minute stage 9 means you had very good pillar spots. Unfortunately, as we're about to see, I got a pretty bad pillar spot right here, this opposite end of the wall, which is going to cause some problems. It's just not a good spot. It adds a bit of a headache. My PB, I had good pillars, but some bad boss fights. But if you have amazing pillar luck, it saves a lot of time. So the challenge with this run that I had is that I needed to play well enough that bad luck would not hurt me so much. You really got to knock out that guard. There's no faster way around it. And again, just barely get around this guard. Now, originally, Snake wanted to just blow up the generator, but that's not possible. Instead, we're going to blow up this power plant by those exposed pillar points, which are random. We always run up here because there's C4, and that is a spot that we just crossed by the C4 point. I'm going to knock out this guard, and this will allow me to check another pillar spot. Those aren't active, but it's a good idea to check, just so you know. More information allows us to deduce which pillar spots are active. It's a bit of a mental arithmetic that you have to do while you're running stage 8 and 9. And we'll check over here, and lo and behold, that's a pillar spot. So we plant the C4. In a marathon style run, you kind of just have to roll with whatever you get. So you have to be prepared for all the various versions and permutations that can arrive, which can be pretty challenging. You just have to know what kind of lines and routes you have to take. So we plant at the second spot here, and we actually already know where all the spots are. There's one in the basement, and there's that one that we saw at the start of the stage. But I still check the other spots just for muscle memory purposes. Again, it seems weird that camera doesn't spot us, but once it's on a corner, it can't. So, I'm going to throw a chaff here. And that'll allow us not to take damage from these turrets. And the other issue with this is that I have to use a grenade to blow up that panel. Otherwise, I can't get past that floor. I still don't have the Nikita, so... And then while we're on this alert, quote-unquote, again, they haven't spotted us yet, so it's not an alert. I'm going to wait it out over here. And just wait. This is why this bomb is pretty bad, because we have to go really out of the way. We have to wait out an alert. It's just a nightmare, frankly, but it's not the worst spot, but it's pretty bad. So we're going to go through the spot that we blew up earlier. Now, normally I would use the left path here, but since I already used a chaff to avoid taking damage, I need to take this route through these desks. And now we're going to go to the basement. Ideally, you would not have to go to the basement, but it happens. You just kind of have to accept the RNG for what it is in this run. Thankfully, the spot is not the worst spot in the basement. We don't have to go super deep into the basement, but the deeper we go, the worse it gets. And so we're going to plant a C4 at this exposed spot. Colonel's going to call us and be like, all right, you planted all of the C4. Good job. Let's get out of there before we blow this whole thing up. I'm going to equip the box to avoid getting spotted by this guy. Just being very safe. Knock him out. See you later, alligator. Bunch of lag. Thankfully, the in-game timer accounts for lag, which is nice. It also accounts for codecs, which is why it doesn't matter what version of this game you play. And they're like, we gotta blow it up now! Forget about it! You can't get out! Just blow it up now! And now, we have to deal with even more luck. There's gonna be rubble falling randomly from the ceiling, which is pretty dangerous, because on very hard we don't have that much health to work with anyways. The fire placements are static, but the rubble falling from the ceiling is not. So you just kind of have to navigate around it. Now, if I had enough health to spare, I would actually damage boost through the fire on the right side as we come up to the first floor, but I just didn't want to play that way. I had a pretty good run since I hadn't had any unintentional deaths, so rather than risking it, I just take the long way around. But you can run through the fire just next to the elevator and get through that way. Because, as you can see, the rocks can just troll you and waste your time. I wasn't going to have any of that, so I took the slow way around. So unfortunately, not the best luck you can get in Stage 9. It's a 4:14. I took a huge time loss there, but that is just how the cookie crumbles with this game. The RNG for Stage 9 is actually set when you start the game, so when I select difficulty, the pseudo RNG generator takes a screenshot of whatever the numbers are, and then it decides which pillars are active or not. So there really is no way for us to manipulate it. You can manipulate it in a tool-assisted speedrun, but not real time, sadly. We just cross our fingers and hope for the best. If we don't get the best, we know what to do. So a very sad cutscene. Guy dies. Poor Jimmy gets blown up. Spoilers. Yikes. The story in this game is actually very dark, very bleak. Oddly enough, it's rated E for everyone, but like Snake drinks in it, and it goes some pretty dark places. Politics, racism, pretty intense compared to Metal Gear Solid 1. The story was so intense that the writer for this game kind of got Hideo Kojima was like, yeah, it's pretty dark, but I'm just gonna let you do it. So it has some comedic and lighter moments, but on the whole, it's quite serious. But I quite like the story on the whole, even though it does end on a bit of a cliffhanger. Sadly, this game never got a sequel. If it did, it would have been on Game Boy Advance and would have been amazing because it would have solved one of the big issues in this game, which is the menuing. You have to press the select button to menu through rather than like pressing like left trigger, right trigger, or L2, R2 in the other games. And just that addition for the GBA would have made a huge difference. Alright, so stage 10, we go through the minefield yet again. And we're about to fight the Havoc helicopter, who can be a real nuisance. It's a pretty random fight. At the start, the helicopter will be at the top of the plateau, and it can either use a machine gun or missiles. We want missiles, we don't want machine gun, because machine gun we're going to take damage. Missiles extends the period of time the Havoc is up top, but the missiles do a lot of damage, so you don't want to get hit by them. The first throw is consistent. Havoc always goes left, but what it does from this point on is not set. Where the missiles land isn't set, whether it does the machine gun or the missiles isn't set. I was playing very carefully here because, again, I had a very good run, no unintentional deaths, and this fight can go really badly. Goes over to the right side, and you gotta time out your grenades very specifically here. With the iframes of the Havoc and trying to avoid taking damage from the machine gun. I'm just a little bit too early on that throw. And sadly, I'm going to get the bombing run here, which you don't want. It doesn't always happen, and I had the worst RNG here. It doesn't have to go back and forth this many times. It can only take one trip, but it took the max, what I believe is the max, is 5 trips, which is just, it's really bad. On top of that, because of the grenade issues I've had where I was throwing bad grenades, my grenade count is quite poor. Ideally, coming out of this fight, we want like 12, 13 grenades. I have 6. And the more grenades we have, the better the final Metal Gear fight is going to go. So I was pretty nervous at this point because this is like the worst my grenade count has ever been on a run like this. And my first great rank of the run, they are very, very picky with stage 10. Since we didn't pick up the Nikita launcher, all we have are grenades, which makes the fight kind of challenging due to that. Again, I'm going to blame the game a little bit there because the only thing that wasn't great about that was the fact that helicopter took 5 trips. This is ridiculous. It's very bad luck, but we got through, and that's what counts. Because sometimes that fight will take no time whatsoever. You'll get really good luck. You'll do well on your grenade throws. And just pack it in and go home, but sometimes we just do not get the ideal in this game, and Even on good runs, that'll probably happen somewhere along the line. Something's going to go wrong. But the mark of, I think, a good player in any speed game is knowing how to adjust, how to improvise, depending on what you get. So because of my low grenade count, I'm going to change my strategy going into Metal Gear on stage 12. So here's the maintenance base. Conveniently, the Nikita launcher spawns here, and we need it, so it's very good. We're going to sneak around this camera, hold down right, and that'll allow us to sneak past this guard. And this is the other Nikita skip. We're going to skip using the Nikita, because again, not all parts of this floor is actually electrified. Do a damage boost, and allow us to go past the floor, and now we are literally one hit from death, but this saves over a minute from having to use the Nikita, and this will give us more Nikita missiles, which is nice. If you line yourself up properly, you can actually just fire right into the Nikita. Fire another Nikita, blow up this panel. Those are the only two panels we need to blow up. Pick up that C4. Knock this guard out. Sneak by that guard. And again, go against the wall. Pre-buffering down right, so we can just run past that guy. And again, knocking out some guards, making our way through. Pretty standard gameplay here. But the fact that we did that skip to avoid using the Nikita saves well over a minute on this floor. The challenge is anything that goes wrong will kill us. And this next floor we're going to, floor 50, has some pretty scary moments that could kill our run. Yes, I did say floor 50. We're going to be riding this elevator for 49 floors. These long elevator rides are why this stage is so long. Which is pretty funny. Like, the gameplay of this stage is not long, but we're just waiting around on the elevator. It's kind of the reversed MGS3 ladder. But it's kind of referencing, you know, there's an elevator in Metal Gear 1 that's extremely long, and this game takes place in the same area, the same place where Metal Gear 1 took place, on a new base. I kind of like to think of this like, you know, Dante's Inferno. We're riding our way down into hell. Because floor 50, and when we get to floor 100, that's when things get really challenging. So kind of like Meryl in MGS1, this guard's going to show us a path through this minefield, but it's not a fast path. I know where I'm going. I don't need his help. Thanks a lot, buddy, but no thanks. The route here for very hard is a little bit different than normal because there's actually C4 that spawns in here on normal, but we don't get that luxury. So we take a little bit of a different path. And now we're coming up into a laser room that's completely random as far as the laser patterns. I take it very risky here. I just kind of said, all right, oh, both of them cleared? All right, let's go. And just barely get through the second laser. And here it's very important that we don't slow down or get caught by that guard. And we're going to take an alert here. This is the extra alert that, thankfully, since we didn't lose an alert throughout the rest of the run, we take that laser alert that saves 20 seconds or so. And now this is the C4 bomb run. And we're going to take another alert here because, again, lasers are a separate alert. And again, we're at 1 hit, so any mistake here, the run is over. Very much so, because we will take additional alerts and then we won't get Big Boss. So I make sure to knock out that guard once I get past a certain line on the floor. Make sure I'm far enough away from the wall to blow it up. Throw a stun grenade because 4 guards, not fun to deal with. And then we're going to blow up this wall. On normal, you would actually damage boost here and not wait for the trap door, but I don't have the luxury of rations, so we have to take it slow. And again, we want to keep the alert going because we do not want to go into evasion and start another alert. That's a very bad thing because we are at our max alerts now, 5. And here's one of the scariest rooms in the game. We're going to blow up this panel with the Nikita. And it's very important that we keep a cool head here because, again, it's quite easy to take damage here, die, and that's it for Big Boss. You're going to have to take another alert. So I throw the stun at just the right time. They all get stunned, and I'm out there scot-free. Going into that room removes the alert. And now we go through this laser room again. It's best to be patient here, unless you recognize that you can go. And we're out of there. Very happy that that went as well as it did, because floor 50 is one of the last places in the run where your alert count could get ruined, because being at 1 hit from death, pretty scary. Again, in a marathon run, we have rations to spare, so it's okay. We can just equip a ration if we're feeling a little bit scared, no problem. But for Big Boss, yeah, you just kind of have to go with it. Gotta go fast, right? And here's a 48 floor elevator ride. Hey, it's 2 floors faster than the last one. That's pretty great. So again, in a marathon, great time for donations. There's nothing really to talk about here. The end of this stage is a little bit more relaxed and simple compared to floor 50. Unfortunately, the supplies that they provide us here are very minimal. There's not a whole lot compared to normal. That's one of the biggest issues with this run, is just they're very stingy compared. Because, like, in normal, this room has, like, 3 things you can pick up. Very hard, you just get 1. So we just have to roll with it. Accept our plight, because we gotta be a Big Boss, you know? So we're heading into the boss of this stage, Black Arts Viper. We'll be fighting Viper again in stage 13, so this is Viper 1. Viper 1 is a really weird fight. It's kind of confusing to watch. But we're going to be in this room where there's all these posts. And Viper will cause these tripwires to spawn. And you'll be able to see where the tripwires are. And once they disappear, they'll be active. But if we do damage to Viper, he'll go to the opposite side of the room, and he'll activate a new set of tripwires. And again, once the tripwires disappear, that's when they're active. But if you crawl under them, you won't get damaged. I'm explaining this ahead of time because you might be a little bit puzzled. It is weird. Fun fact, on the left side of this room, there's actually an Easter egg where you can see the remains of the original Metal Gear from Metal Gear 1, which is pretty cool. Now, conveniently, the pistol that we skipped way earlier on in stage 1 is actually here, which is very nice. We can use it. So I'm going to use that for this fight. And that ration in the corner, again, I would pick up on a marathon run, because you really don't want to die on the next stage. It's a huge waste of time. Viper's very angry. He's going to show how angry he is with his left arm. It's a mechanical arm. Show his shake weight action. So yeah, you see all these posts. These tripwires can spawn randomly along them once he raises his hand. And we'll just be going back and forth and shooting him. So it goes up right. I shoot him. He's going to go down left. I crawl to make sure I don't get blown up, because again, any hit here, I'm dead. So we got to be careful. Unfortunately, I was whiffing my shots there, but it doesn't really matter all that much. Again, it's really cooler heads prevail with Viper 1. If you lose a little bit of time, it doesn't matter too much, because it's more important about getting through the fight safely than rushing it and running into a tripwire or something. Pretty straightforward, and we got a gold on that stage. That's the second gold of the run. A 7-4X is definitely doable on that stage, but that was a pretty good stage 11 on the whole. Good luck with the lasers, good C4 bomb run, and that freebie alert I got to use on the laser room before the C4 bomb run. It was very nice. So stage 12, this is the big one. This is where everything culminates, climaxes, where all of your ammo routing with your grenades and Nikitas and C4 come to this point. The more grenades you have, the better. The more Nikita you have, the better. There are two phases to Metal Gear. In phase 1, Metal Gear is going to be walking down the road and trying to stomp you. And on very hard, it will try shooting you with a machine gun, which is a real annoyance. It adds another complicating variable to the fight. And then in phase 2, we'll be destroying the body of Metal Gear. This fight is really random, and it's by far the hardest Metal Gear fight of the 2D games. In Metal Gear 1 and 2, those fights are honestly jokes as far as speedruns are concerned. This fight is not a joke. You have to be well prepared. You have to know what kind of patterns you can get. And we'll get more into that once we actually see the body. Look at the scale of this thing. The model for this Metal Gear Gander, is actually an early draft of Metal Gear Rex from Metal Gear Solid 1. Fun fact. So, right at the start, I'm going to hold right and then plant the C4 at a very precise spot to get a free hit. But you got to avoid that machine gun. It's very important. And we're going to stop in place at a certain point in the road, and this will cause the foot to drop as quickly as possible. We don't want... The foot can kind of like waver around and wait. We want the shadow to drop as soon as possible. And this was a perfect legs, because we didn't get shot by the machine gun, and very good plants on my part. I was very happy about, because you really do not want to take damage going into phase 2 of this fight, because the RNG and the luck factor becomes pretty extraordinary here. So, we're going to be doing damage to those machine guns, those shoulder turrets, and the missile pack on the back. Grenades do basically no damage. Most of our damage is going to come from the Nikita. And so we shoot the Nikita once the shoulder turret pops up. 4 hits will destroy a shoulder turret, and we'll get a damage boost from that. This boss starts with like 98 HP, and we have to do like 63 to initiate the final phase. But sometimes you get the UAVs, and this is literally the worst pattern the UAVs can throw at you, which is pretty bad. So I just focused on dodging. The UAVs have like 5 patterns, and I literally got the worst one. It's pretty funny. So one more Nikita hit will destroy that shoulder turret. I'm just spamming grenades because I don't have that many, so I want to pick up some more. They'll spawn in the fight. Now I've destroyed the right shoulder turret. I'm going over to the left side. And randomly, the missiles can start flying at some point. And this is not a good spot. I do not like getting missiles in this spot of the arena. I use pause buffering here to try to study the map and know where to go, but sadly I still got hit by a missile. And then we get missiles again. Missiles are really dangerous, by the way, because at max HP, you can only take one. The second one will kill you. So again, using pausing to study the map, be very careful, because you really got to be careful. That's all I can say. And this missile looks like it's going to hit, but the top of Snake does not actually count as a hitbox, thankfully. And again, getting UAVs, getting a really bad pattern, getting shot. It's not good. Metal Gear was really out for blood on this run. So now that I'm out of grenades, I'm just kind of going to wait for the shoulder turret to pop up and then run to look for the grenades. They could spawn on the left side or the right side. Unfortunately, I got right side. So now I got to run all the way back. Throw a grenade. And just pace out my grenades, because if you throw a grenade at the right time, you'll disable the machine gun and then the shoulder turret will pop up. Now we've done enough damage to initiate the final phase, the flamethrower phase. The flamethrower patterns are random, and I only have 2 hits and I'm dead. That's the first hit, and now I have to play the rest of this perfectly. Again, the flamethrower pattern is random, so you just kind of have to run in, run out. Like, that pattern is very scary. My heart was racing during this fight. You just gotta throw it in, and that's Metal Gear. Very scary fight. The way it turned out was super scary. Sometimes you'll get very good luck, and the more grenades you have coming into this fight, the better your chances are, but there's really no guarantees. You could get like 4 missile phases in a row. The UAVs could just keep on shooting at you. You really don't have a lot of control over how the fight goes. You just kind of have to respond in turn. But we got through it, scraping by. Scraping by. At this point, all we have left is stage 13, which is also a random stage, but not as scary. We're going to be fighting Viper once again, but he's not really going to be fighting us as much as he is just going to be burning the clock. There's going to be a timer in the top right corner. If that timer goes to 0, we fail, but that's not going to happen. This fight is pretty easy. The issue is that Viper can spawn in several different points in the battlefield, and you can manipulate it somewhat, but not entirely. You just kind of have to cross your fingers and hope for the best. 2 hits from Viper and we're dead, but typically he's not going to try and attack you. He's just going to run away from you. Because just because you destroy Metal Gear doesn't mean that the satellites aren't going to cause a nuclear holocaust. So we got to stop Viper before that happens. Again, the story in this game is pretty great. I didn't really explain it that much, but there's a lot to talk about in this run, so hopefully you don't blame me too much. So, I immediately go down left because I hope that Viper's in the bottom left corner. He wasn't, so I go across. And we just time our shots properly. Again, where you're standing is going to prevent him from spawning in certain spots. And he never spawns in the same spot twice in a row. He spawned in a good spot, but sadly I wasn't really prepared for it. This is just kind of a roll the dice and hope he goes in a good place. And here I swap back to the Galil since I'm running out of ammo. That's why we pick up both of the guns. You can kill them with mines and grenades and stuff, but the bullets are the best. So we can keep our distance. One final hit, and down he goes. And time is once we see stage 13 cleared. And that is a 43-29 big boss run in under 80 minutes. And this is my first run that I ever had where I didn't have any unintentional deaths. The only deaths that happened during this run were the intended deaths for the thermo skip. Made me very happy. Never been achieved before for me. Fastest time ever achieved for Big Boss. Now, of course, the time can be improved by a few minutes due to factors of luck and better execution. The big one being stage 9 with the pillars. If the pillars are in good spots, you can save, a couple minutes. And of course, depending on how Metal Gear is, the Havoc helicopter, and so on, that can save time as well. But I'm very, very happy with this run. My goal going into this category and routing it and playing it was to get a deathless Big Boss run, and I have achieved it, which is very nice. At this point, we're just waiting out for the credits to hear our results. Hear and see our results at the end to confirm we did get Big Boss rank. So as we close out this run, I want to give a few thanks and shout-outs. Thank you to the LCC for his contributions to the game, including the Nikita Skip. Without LCC, I probably wouldn't have even run this game. Shout out to /star-dash, who made a TAS of Very Hard a few years ago. And thanks to Bad Humans, Casino Coin, Heresy, Jaguar King, Philosopher, and Stealth Edge for their contributions to this game. Without all these people's help, the routing that I did for this category would not have been possible. And finally, a big shout out to the entire Metal Gear Speedrunners community, MGSR. If you'd like to learn this game, its VR missions, or any other game in the series, check us out at metalgearspeedrunners.com. So that's about it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this commentary track. I really love this game, and it was quite a pleasure routing this category out and improving it to what it is today. While this game can be very frustrating and difficult, I think it really shines as one of the best games in the series, personally. One of my favorites. I hope you enjoy the ending credits music. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.